Hello, I'm Belkis Perez. Thanks for watching Coral Gables Television. Today on Coral Gables Now, we'll have the latest information on how to get ready for hurricane season. A couple of street improvement projects are expected to improve neighborhoods and enhance property values. Plus, find out what happens when your social security number is stolen. Those stories and much more, Coral Gables Now starts right now. Welcome to Coral Gables Now. I'm Belkis Perez. First off, we have some important information to share with you. Soon, taking a drive through the city will go a lot smoother. That's because approximately 30 lane miles of streets are being resurfaced. Tanya Leitz has that story and others on City News.
That's right, Belkis. This is the most ambitious street resurfacing project ever undertaken by the city, and the first phase is expected to begin in June. This project is part of the Neighborhood Renaissance Program, NRP, proposed by City Manager Pat Salerno and approved by the City Commission. The list of streets to be resurfaced is equivalent to what would normally be paved in approximately 10 years, but residents will soon have a newly paved street to look forward to. The city engaged the engineering firm of C3TS to evaluate and review all streets north and south of US 1. The findings were then compiled on this map indicating the streets to be resurfaced. Phase 1 will resurface all identified neighborhood streets north of US 1 and is expected to last approximately 3 months. Phase 2 will then resurface neighborhood streets located south of US 1. If you would like to have your street reevaluated for possible resurfacing, please send an email to pwdepartment@coralgables.com. This project is one of many under the NRP aimed at making neighborhoods the most livable they can be, but should also enhance property values. In other news, the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, is scheduled for construction of a roadway improvement project late May on Red Road from Southwest A Street to Coral Way. This project will last approximately 11 months, and among the improvements are the following: resurfacing Red Road, constructing sidewalks, installing decorative lighting and bike lanes, and planting new trees. Drivers can expect some delays, but work will be done in stages and lane closures will be scheduled to avoid traffic congestions. Meanwhile, access to homes and businesses will be maintained. For more information, visit www.fdotmiamidade.com. And finally, the Actors Playhouse Resident Ticket Program was proposed by City Manager Pat Salerno. This program will offer free admission to Coral Gables residents ages 60 and over and under 18 years of age accompanied by one parent for certain preview show nights throughout the year. The next play will be Real Men Sing Show Tunes and Play with Puppets on Wednesday, July 11th at 8 p.m. Residents have to come in person no earlier than June 20th to the War Memorial Youth Center on 405 University Drive to be placed on a reservation list after showing proof of residency and age. Tickets will then be available at the Playhouse's Will Call window on Miracle Mile prior to each performance. There is a limit of 50 free admissions for each performance based on a first-come, first-served basis, and tickets are limited to 2 per household. For more information, call the City of Coral Gables Parks and Recreation Division at 305-460-5600. That's all I have for you today, Belkis. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Tanya. Up next on Coral Gables Now, we are now in hurricane season. Find out what makes this season different from previous years and learn the steps you can take to get storm ready. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Carlos from your local fire department with another safety tip. Each year, more than 2,500 people die in home fires, and almost 2/3 of those deaths happen in homes where smoke detectors are not working.
Smoke detectors are your first line of defense against deadly fires, but they cannot protect you if they don't work. Your local fire department wants to keep you and your family safe should a fire break out in your home. so please follow a few simple rules. Make sure you have smoke detectors on each level of your home and outside each sleeping areas. Test your smoke detectors monthly and change the batteries in your smoke detectors at least once a year. A good rule of thumb to help you remember when to change the battery of your smoke detector is at the change of daylight saving time. When you change the time on your clock, change the battery in your smoke detector. Early warnings from a smoke detector alarm can make the difference between surviving a fire or dying in one.
It's a plain and simple fact. Working smoke detectors save lives. We want you to be safe, not sorry.
Welcome back. Hurricane season began June 1st. Now, experts say that we should have an average to below average season. We go now to the National Hurricane Center, where we find meteorologist Robert Molleda. Robert, can you tell me what exactly are the predictions for this year?
The NOAA outlook for this hurricane season calls for a near normal season, anywhere from 9 to 15 named storms possibly forming in the Atlantic Basin. Of those 9 to 15 storms, 4 to 8 could become hurricanes, and of those 4 to 8, 1 to 3 could become major hurricanes. Compared to the last few years, those are actually lower numbers. The previous 2 years, we actually had forecast, and we had a higher number of storms that actually formed in the Atlantic Basin. We had well over 15 each of the last 2 years, which is above normal. Keep in mind that the normal number of storms in the Atlantic Basin is 12 in one season. Now, the important thing to mention about these numbers is that regardless of whether the forecast ends up being right or not, it really makes little difference as far as the way that we should prepare as a community. The motto, "It only takes one," definitely applies in this situation. For example, a lot of us were here in South Florida during Hurricane Andrew in 1992, and of course this year is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Andrew. That year we only had 6 named storms, which is well below the average. Unfortunately, one of them was Hurricane Andrew, so that's why we just have to be prepared no matter what the forecast calls for, whether it's 5 storms, 10, or 15. We have to be ready the same way every year.
And can you tell me what influenced the forecast for this year?
We look at a variety of factors in coming up with the seasonal outlook. We look at, for example, ocean temperatures in the Atlantic. We're looking at air currents, not only near the United States, but also over the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea. We even look at trends in the Pacific Ocean. In other words, we're looking at indications or trends that are sometimes global in nature to try to come up with an idea of what type of general pattern we might see in that upcoming season. And for this year, the 2 factors that may come into play are, one, the possible presence of El Nino by the end of the hurricane season. Now, El Nino usually causes less storms to form in the Atlantic Ocean. And that very well might be a big factor this hurricane season. But again, we don't want to let our guard down just because that might happen. Another thing we look at is the sea surface temperatures. The ocean surface temperatures this year are not as warm as they've been in the last couple of years. So that might be another factor that could influence the number of storms that might form this year.
All right, thanks, Robert. Now, this does not mean a hurricane won't threaten South Florida, so we must be prepared regardless. Let's go now to Rodolfo Roman. He is working on a hurricane preparedness special and even got a chance to tour the National Hurricane Center. How did that go?
It was a great experience for us here at Coral Gables Television to see these men and women at work using this great technology. It's really amazing.
So did they give you any indication, these meteorologists, as far as what puts the city of Coral Gables more at risk when it comes to a storm?
Well, because it's hard to pinpoint exactly where a storm is going to strike, but I can tell you this, trees are a major factor here in Coral Gables. That is why you need to be prepared prior to the storm striking, because you don't want to have any debris affecting you during the storm. If you haven't done so yet, now is the time to get your hurricane supplies. June marks the beginning of hurricane season, and time is of the essence.
I think the most crucial time is before the season begins. Take the time in late May and maybe right around June 1st to get all your supplies. Make sure you have a hurricane plan. Know what you and your family are going to do. Find out if you live in an evacuation zone. Do all those things before the storm, because once the storm threatens, it's time to take the action.
We have been lucky. Florida has dodged a bullet in the past. But regardless, experts at the National Hurricane Center say Coral Gables residents should be ready.
Well, the main thing is to stock up on your supplies, to make sure you have a supply to, for you and your family for several days after a storm, or if it were to hit. Make sure you have non-perishable foods, water on hand, stock up on batteries, test out that generator, make sure you have all the nuts and bolts for your shutters.
Listen to your local newscast or Coral Gables television to find out if your area calls for evacuations. If you have an elderly person living in your home, have an emergency plan. Medication or vitamins should be on a list in case you have to stay in shelter. If you have pets, have a plan because not all shelters accept animals.
That's something that you should be doing before the season starts, so you'll know and aren't in a rush when a storm threatens as to what you're going to do with your animal, or if you have an elderly family member. Again, you need to make sure that you have all that planned out ahead of time, what you're going to do with them.
Grab a survival kit in case you decide to ride the storm at home. It should include canned foods and water, enough to feed a family for 2 weeks. Also have a battery-powered portable radio. Apply shutters to your residence and purchase flashlights. We can't emphasize any more on how significant it is to be prepared prior to the strike of the storm. But for information, keep it tuned right here to Coral Gables Television or visit the website www.coralgables.com. Belkis.
And I hope, Rodolfo, that this is just all good practice and nothing comes out of it. Now, Rodolfo's special report will start airing on Coral Gables Television this month. You can catch it right here on Comcast Channel 77. It's called Weathering the Storm, and you can also see it online at www.coralgables.com. And we'll be right back with more of Coral Gables Now. Stay tuned.
The city of Coral Gables has a heart, and now those kind-hearted individuals, organizations, or groups who've done a spontaneous good deed can be nominated for the city's Random Act of Kindness Award. If you know of a person, group, or organization doing a selfless act of kindness, we want to hear from you. Every month beginning in January, the city of Coral Gables will recognize those who have a heart in our community and do random acts of kindness to help out friends or strangers. Whether it's helping an elderly neighbor to take care of their yard, donating time to a school or hospital in need, or simply lending a hand to a stranger. These good deeds help make Coral Gables a better place to live and work. You can download a nomination form by visiting the city's website at www.coralgables.com or calling 305-460-5205 for more information. Nominate a random act of kindness in Coral Gables today.
In other news, we all know of someone who has been the victim of identity theft, or perhaps you've been a victim yourself. So what's the process to establishing your identity again? Maria Diaz from Social Security is here to explain the process. Thank you, Maria, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we all know of someone who's had their identity stolen. Do you get a lot of calls from people who this has happened to, and what are the most popular circumstances?
We do get a lot of calls and a lot of people that visit our office because they have, or they believe somebody is using their identity. The most common one right now, Belka, seems to be people who they have had their identity stolen for tax purposes. When they go to file their tax returns, they find out somebody's already filed using their Social Security number. That's one that we're seeing very, very much since last year. And also, we have been receiving calls about just the general where they receiving bills where they didn't make the purchases. So just totally identity theft for most of the time is for credit purposes.
And with those two circumstances, it's because they've taken your Social Security number, right? I mean, you wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't have that number.
Right. Somehow, some of these scammers have gotten a hold of your Social Security number, of someone's Social Security number, and is using them for fraudulent and to assume their identity.
So what can you do? I mean, as far as Social Security is concerned, when something like this happens and you call, are you issued another number?
No. And the reality is there's very little that Social Security can do once that has happened. There's really nothing Social Security numbers are individual, and we don't recycle numbers, but that number that you're issued is your number for life. There are very rare instances where we can issue somebody a new number, and normally the circumstances of identity theft are not one of the ones. So it is something that the individual that has suffered the loss or is being scammed or the fraud is being done has to actually work with all kinds of different agencies to try to resolve the issue. We at Social Security, what the person needs to do once they think somebody has used their Social Security number is contact us to see that their earnings are correctly posted to the record and that everything is correct as far as their number. If they're receiving benefits, we'll also check to make sure that there have been no changes, unauthorized changes to the account, such as changes of address or changes of a bank. Those things rarely happen, but they can. But basically, make sure that the earnings are correctly on the person's record.
So you should still call regardless. Even if they cannot change your number, you should still call just to make sure that nothing has been compromised on your end.
Exactly. They need to make sure that as far as on Social Security records, your earnings are correct on the record and that there's no other fraudulent activity done with Social Security.
So what can you do if you want to protect yourself, and also if you are looking to detect if you've been a victim of fraud?
Well, the most important thing that somebody can do is try to prevent this. And one of the things that you can do is, first of all, don't carry your Social Security number. Keep it in a secure place. It's a confidential number. You should not be giving this out. I've been to places where they ask somebody, what is your Social Security number? They scream it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a public place. Everybody's listening to it. So keep your number private, and also keep it in a safe place. Do not carry it with you. And when somebody asks you for your number, which everybody nowadays seems to ask everybody for their Social Security number, ask them, why do you need it? Is there a law that says that I have to give it to you? And what happens if I don't give it to you? In other words, are my services going to be denied? Most places, they don't need it. Your services will not be denied, so don't give them the number. We were talking before, and I was telling you a lot of this stuff is internal. At the doctor's office, they always seem to ask it. I work at a doctor's office. I seem like a nice person. You fill out your application, you put your Social Security number. I make a copy. I sell that information. So be very careful. I'm not saying this happens, but it happens.
Exactly.
So be very careful when you give your number. If it's not mandatory, if your services are not going to be denied, don't give it to them.
But like we were talking before, sometimes the first thing they ask you when you make a phone call to a customer service or you do anything is your Social Security number, and it's not just the 4 digits; it's the entire number.
And I won't give it.
What do you do? I mean, is that a proof of identity?
No. Social Security card is not a form of identification whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the sole purpose of Social Security was to keep track of a person's earnings in order to pay them benefits. It's just that's such a good numbering system that everybody seems to get it, that seems to use it. But for example, if you're applying for a credit card or loan and you don't give them your Social Security number, you're not going to get the loan. So that's an instance where if you want the loan and it is a credible bank or someone you know, it's not just anybody, you're going to give them the information. So of course, if you're applying or if you've been employed, you're going to give them the number. But most of the other people that ask us for a number really don't need it, and our services won't be denied. Don't give it to them. I don't give it, and I've never had a problem not giving it.
How about the last 4 digits? Is that okay
it's perfectly
to do?
Safe. Perfectly safe. There's nothing that I can do with your last 4, and a lot of times people that we do business with want to also make sure that they're speaking to the right person, and the way to do it is to ask them for the last 4 because they know your last 4, and that way they can guarantee that they're really speaking to the person. So there's no problem with that.
Okay, great information. Let's switch topics now. You just unveiled that there's an online now. You can see your statements online. This is the statement that we used to get in the mail, once a year?
Once a year.
Which would tell you what your benefits would be once you retire. Now we can get it online.
That's correct. We stopped mailing them because of budget reasons, and they're now available online. And it is wonderful. I actually went online to do my own to make sure it worked like we said it was working, and it does. There is, once you visit socialsecurity.gov, you'll see it right on there. It says My Benefit Statement. You do have to register. Of course, you have to answer some personal questions. Our site is secure. It is a secure site, and we don't share information with any other agency or anybody. So your information will be secure with us. But we do ask some questions because we need to make sure that it's really you and not somebody else trying to access your Social Security record. Once you put in all the information, if it matches, we're going to give you a complete benefit statement. It's going to include year by year all your earnings, which is great for you to check your earnings to make sure they're credited. You should do this once a year. And also, if you think somebody has been using your number, this is a quick way to look to see if your earnings are correct and there's nothing on there that shouldn't be on there. And also on that statement, it's going to give you your future retirement benefits, disability, and survivor's benefits. So it's a good financial planning tool that you can use. And I encourage everyone to go to socialsecurity.gov and get this information. It is available to anyone 18 years old, at least 18, and it's free. And all your information will be on there. If you have difficulties, it cannot get it, then it will tell you to either visit our office and you can request it by mail, or we can help you establish your identity so that you can do it online.
Okay. And lastly, you just released the top names this year for babies.
Yes.
What are they?
Social Security does this once a year as a cute thing.
I know.
Since we issue Social Security numbers to newborn, we know who's naming their babies what. And the number one names this year wasn't much of a change. For boy was Jacob, and for Sophia for girl. And the funny thing is Mason was number 2, and I didn't know this because I don't watch a lot of TV, but it seems like reality TV has played a big role on the top 10 names. I won't reveal them. Let them go online and check them. It's socialsecurity.gov. But Mason, I believe, is one of the Kardashians' kids' son.
Oh, so then they... Yeah,
right, so that name is now number 2. It used to be way down on the list. But a lot of the top 10 names come from names from reality TV. So it looks like a lot of people are watching. Elvis made it up there on the list. It's crawling up. So
Elvis is on the list?
Elvis is not on the top 10, but did make it up on the list. But it's a cute list. So if you're expecting or know someone that's expecting and want a common name or not so common name, check out the Social Security list, because this actually has the list for all children born in the United States. And in the website, it's even interesting, it has some trivia. So if you go to the year of your birth, it'll actually tell you the popular names, the year of your birth.
Interesting.
A lot of cute information on there.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
All right, so if you want any more information on any of the topics that we discussed today, you can go on the Social Security website. That's www.socialsecurity.gov. You can also call them at 1-800-772-1213, and there you can actually get more information on stealing identity. They have great little pamphlets just like this one that you can order. They're free, and they can send them to you. And also, if you feel that your identity has been compromised, you should definitely call the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, at 1-877-ID-THEFT. Still to come on the show, UM has been named a bike-friendly university. Find out what that means next. Welcome back. The University of Miami has received a recognition that no other university in the state of Florida has achieved. David Alvarez explains.
The University of Miami has always been known for its academics and beautiful campus, but it has been recently recognized for something new, as being a bike-friendly university. The program looks for universities that have taken extra efforts to be bike-friendly and promote cycling as a fun and safe alternative to driving. UM has always had students biking, but a policy change years ago really brought more bikes onto campus. Freshmen were no longer allowed to have cars. So to give those students new options for transportation, the U-Bike Committee came up with a plan.
Absolutely. In 2008, when we initiated that program, we actually was the same time we initiated the U-Bike program, where we actually provided bikes at a highly subsidized rate. They were like $50 for the bikes that cost the university about $110. We sold them out online, pre-order, before the shipment even got here, and we had to order more. So there was certainly an interest generated in bikes.
The U-Bike Committee has installed bike racks, gave free bike locks, and even widened sidewalks to try to create a bike culture on campus. With the increase in bikes, some students who lived off campus even began to ride their bike onto UM, which helped free up parking and cars on the street.
We at the university have done quite a bit where biking is concerned, and now this is an opportunity for us to even do more. Anything we can do to get people out of their cars. If every year we can chip away and with this designation ramp things up a little bit, and we can get this month 5 people out of their cars and bike into campus, and then next month 10, and in a year we have 50 or 60. That'll be a great accomplishment. That's 50 or 60 cars that we take off the road. That's 50 or 60 parking spaces we don't have to build on campus. That's 50 or 60 cars that are not traversing US 1 and Ponce de Leon Boulevard every single day. So with a combination of more bikes, more people using Metro Rail or Zip cars on campus, we're trying to do everything we can, to increase opportunities for people to, come to campus, through other means than the single occupant vehicle.
With this Bronze Award designation, UM will not only attract some more possible students interested in cycling, it would also help reduce the school's carbon footprint. Coral Gables Now, David Alvarez.
All right, thanks, David. That does it for this edition of Coral Gables Now. Thank you for watching Coral Gables Television, and we'll see you next month. Take care.